Got it.
Okey doke. Thanks for everybody's patience. And okay, so I'm just checking to see if other people have joined us, and it doesn't look like I see Salah and Youngji, Judy Callan, Chris Imes, Julia. Anyone from other schools outside the nursing school? Not yet. Okay. Well, anyone can interrupt if they have questions, but I'd like to first introduce Youngji Lee, who's the co-director of the eHealth Hub. And today we're going to do an overview of the Hub. This is our first meeting of all of the Hub members. Potential members might be joining us in the future, not just from the School of Nursing, but from the other schools and departments that we collaborate with. And then the bulk of today's presentation will be describing one of the new cores called the Interactive Health Technology Core, and I'll tell more about that as we get closer. So we have used the definition of eHealth in this manner to be as inclusive as possible. The use of emerging information and communication technologies, such as the internet, mobile devices, et cetera, to improve or enable health and healthcare. So you can see how broad a term and definition that is. And our reason for trying to cluster faculty, students, trainees, collaborators under this umbrella, our work related to this, is because this work holds promise for promoting health, well-being, and reducing disparities, you know, the end game for all of this for individuals and groups. There are some overarching goals of this hub. The first is to coalesce efforts of those who are conducting research in the eHealth space, be able to share a range of methodologies and perspectives across disciplines in this work, support the inclusion of patients or consumers in the co-creation of eHealth solutions to maximize their benefits and reduce their risks, and to support the development of funded projects for individual investigators and convergent researchers. For some reason, this is timed or something. I don't know why it keeps going forward, but to this end, we established two cores to cluster two sort of distinct groups of work going on in this eHealth space. And the first core is called the Health Informatics and Data Science Core. The facilitators of this core include Salah El-Zaidi, Youngji Lee, Fei Zhang, and Teresa Kolek. You'll hear more about this core next session, which would be the fourth Thursday of October. And today we're concentrating on the Interactive Health Technologies Core, which focuses on the use of interactive technologies for the assessment and delivery of interventions, applying the principles of user-centered design, design justice, and strategies that support long-term engagement in the use of technology to support behavior change and engagement in healthcare programs. It includes a lot of things such as active and passive measurement with EMA or sensors, delivery of tech-supported interventions. There's a lot of more diverse sort of topics that fit under this core. So what we decided is to bring all the groups together, all the investigators together, whether they're from the School of Nursing or other departments and schools that have an interest in eHealth. We're starting to have sessions dedicated to familiarizing each other with what work is already going on. So you will be hearing from other representatives of departments and schools to hear about an overview of what's going on in their schools or departments with regard to this, with the goal eventually of being much better prepared to support each other on individual grants or convergent research grants. We're hoping to get to the point of being better prepared to respond to RFAs so that the funding capacity is stronger. And you'll see a schedule of how this is going to unfold soon. So as of right now, so today we're doing an overview of the interactive health technology core and what's going on at the school in this area. On the 27th, we'll be doing the same for the health informatics and data science core. November 10th, I don't know if Ravi's on the call right now, but he volunteered to give an overview of what's going on at the School of Pharmacy. And we still have openings for other schools and departments to have an overview. By the end of January, we'd like to start convergent research planning, at least one session a month. And the cores can be working on other things on the alternate week of the month. If we need more time to build in people to give overviews, then we'll just delay the January 26th date until everyone who wants to give an overview has had the opportunity. So again, the goal of today's opening session of the full health eHealth Hub is to give an overview of the interactive health technology core work at the School of Nursing. And I'm just going to stop for a second to see if there are other participants that have joined. Can anyone tell if there are others who have joined?
I just did. I was on another call, so I just jumped
Okay.
on. And
So welcome, Denise, another
Okay,
School of
thank you.
Nursing participant. Anyone from outside the School of Nursing? Other than Martina? Okay, so I am going to keep the screen share on, but turn this over to the facilitators of the interactive health technology core, who will explain the rest of the agenda today. And I'll get back at the very end when we get to the nearly last slides. So Laura Burke and Jamie Zelazny.
Good morning, everyone. So just for technical issue, are you controlling the slides, Annette, or Jamie, are you?
Right now I'm sharing, but I can give up control if somebody else wants to.
No, that's okay. I don't think it's that many slides, so I can just tell you. Okay, so I think to introduce our Jamie and me, I think we need to go to the next slide.
Okay.
Okay, so I have the pleasure of now working as a collaborator with Jamie Zelazny. As some of you may have known, Jacob Hiroyuki was a co-facilitator of this core, but unfortunately he's leaving the School of Nursing. So Jamie has graciously agreed to be a co-leader of this core. And I think she brings a tremendous amount of expertise to the group. So Jamie, I'm gonna let you just talk a little bit about what your background is and what you bring, because I think it's quite different than what I bring.
Yeah, so thanks everyone. I'm happy to take on this new role. The focus of my research is using technology to identify and manage suicide risk in youth. And I use a variety of research methods, including passive sensing, phone apps, and social media. And in the next few slides, I have some more sort of details about my research.
Next.
Yeah, so you know, some of the things that I've been working on, the Bright app is a suicide safety planning app for teens, and I've been actually working on that since 2014 when I was doing my research practicum in my PhD program. And then I have also been doing some work with CMU about trying to implement suicide risk algorithms into clinical care. But the studies that I'm the PI on are an R34 and R21, and then a methods core pilot study through the Etude Center. So next slide, please.
Oops.
Oops, sorry. Okay, so the first one is my R21. It's social media assessment of risk in teens. And so we're recruiting 100 suicide attempters and 100 controls aged 10 to 17. So it's actually starting in the preteen age group as well. And this study includes a couple of things. It's funded by NIMH, like I mentioned. I'm the PI. We're doing interviews and questionnaires looking at assessment of psychopathology, characteristics of social media use, effects of social media use, like subjective reports from the youth, and then looking at suicidal ideation and behavior. And then the second part of this is actually collecting social media data. So I've had a few issues with sort of getting that part set up, and it's just about to start now. But I have a new collaborator at Georgia Tech. Her name is Maminda Chowdhury, and she has developed a platform to be able to collect these data where youth are able to download their own social media data and then upload it into a platform that that they will manage at Georgia Tech. And so yeah, so we're still working on IRB approval for that part. So we did get started with the other part of the study because the funding was already there and I needed to get started recruiting. So, but those are the pieces in that study. Next slide. And then the PI of an R34 that's also funded by the National Institute of Mental Health. It's one of 3 R34s in the Etude Center. So I have a big collaboration with the Department of Psychiatry and Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. And David Brent recently received funding for a really huge center grant. It's like it was a renewal, but it's looking at some new things. As part of that center grant, there were 3 R34s and 1 R01. So I'm the PI of one of the R34s. It's called the Get Active study. And so basically this is using mobile sensing, passive sensing from cell phone data collected using the EARS app. So I've been doing this work as a co-investigator on another study that's through psychiatry in collaboration with the University of Oregon, which is where the EARS app was developed. And Columbia University. And so, you know, I'm pretty familiar with that app and how we collect those data and working with youth with that. So what we're doing in this R34 is we're using the passive sensing data collected through the EARS app and especially patterns in movement and geolocation to inform the Vera app platform and a live health coach for delivering a behavioral activation intervention targeting anhedonia in youth. So right now we're working on the qualitative aims for how that's going to look and what that platform looks like currently and what it might look like in the future. Next slide. And then also through the Etude Center grant, through the Methods Core, which is directed by Bruce Rollman, I'm co-leading a pilot study where we're actually combining the mobile sensing piece and the social media data collection piece with Dr. DeChowdhury to try to detect fluctuations in risk. So we have these studies that are going on independently, but we want to try to put them together to see if combining those data gives us more information about how to predict suicide risk in kids. So we'll have 500 kids with depression or suicidal thoughts and behaviors recruited from primary care for this study. So those are the 3 that I'm the PI on or co-PI on this one. Next slide.
So first, I want to congratulate you, Jamie. I think that your work is incredibly exciting and very, very timely, as we certainly saw, I think, recently in the International Society for Internet Research. I mean, the overarching focus of data or studies at that conference that included over 30 countries represented was really focused on mental health. So you're in a great place and you're bringing a great strength to the eHub, something that we haven't had previously. So I'm just going to talk briefly about 2 of the studies. So many of the people on the line, I think, don't know my work. So I've spent the last 20 plus years doing clinical trials testing various behavioral interventions to reduce cardiovascular risk factors, and particularly focused on the population with overweight or obesity. And after several clinical trials, it became very obvious that relapse was a common occurrence among people in active treatment for weight loss. So we designed a study that was a prospective observational study that lasted 12 months with approximately 150 participants to actually study what are the triggers of temptations that lead to lapses. And so we used ecological momentary assessment methods to conduct the study. And so this study is a great representation of what we want to achieve in the eHub. So it was very strong collaboration, very interdisciplinary at Pitt. There were several representatives from psychiatry, medicine, nursing, epidemiology, etc. There was also a strong involvement with Carnegie Mellon faculty and students who were particularly involved in the programming of the EMA app, and then the University of Georgia, who brought in expertise on statistical analysis of EMA data. So in the School of Nursing, Susan Sirica was very involved, and I will say that this is one study, even though we finished it 5 years ago, I am still working with former students and postdocs actively engaged in continuing to analyze data and write papers from these data because the data was so extensive. So we currently have 1 paper on review and 2 papers that we're actively working on finishing the manuscripts. So this is an excellent example of a lot of data that can provide you opportunities for extensive dissemination, but also bringing in junior faculty and students and postdocs to be engaged in the research. So, so this is just an overview of the model that we use looking at relapse, and I won't go into details. The Empower EMA app conducted time contingent, which meant at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, we assess people's sleep in the morning, their self-efficacy, and the end of the day, the events of the day. There were random assessments throughout the day where we would contact them and ask them, particularly about their location, their social context, and any episodes or temptations to go beyond their healthy living plan. And then there was self-initiated assessment when individuals began a prompt or responded, not a prompt, but they initiated the questionnaire telling us about the fact that they were having a temptation or they had a lapse. And I do want to point out that one of the people on the call, Chris Imes, has been actively involved. I think it was after his postdoc, and now has an R01 level grant at Heart and Lung pending review that he's using data, particularly the sleep data that we collected in the morning, as well as self-efficacy and adherence data throughout the day. Next slide, please. So this is just an overview of the infrastructure, just to sort of demonstrate how we are using multiple forms of technology. Even though by today's standards, it's a little bit, it's not quite as sophisticated, but we were assessing diet on a daily basis using a commercial self-monitoring app called Lucid, and they were collecting the data, and every night they would download the past 24 hours. We were using a phone app, and here's an example of a limitation. So the app was designed only for the phone, so it was an Android, so all participants had to have an Android phone. And so that did create some limitations. The study provided new mobile phones to all the participants unless they had one that was adaptable. But we also use smart scales to collect daily weights. But this is just an example of the whole process that went on. Okay, so the next slide is a clinical trial that on which we enrolled 502 participants. Again, Susan Sirica is a co-investigator on this grant. And we just completed the trial a year ago, and we have published the outcome papers, primary outcomes, and now working on the secondary outcome. And so just it takes us back to a clinical trial testing and intervention, but an intervention that replaced the standard behavior treatment that's an intensive in-person intervention and provided the entire intervention remotely through the use of a smartphone. So again, individuals were wearing the Fitbit for physical activities, using smart scales, and using an app to record their diet. And then the intervention was delivered through an app, so an algorithm that we developed that read the data coming in on these behaviors. And every day they would receive feedback messages regarding diet, every other day regarding physical activity, and once a week regarding weight. So the algorithm would read the data coming in on the phone to the Pitt server. It would select a message from a very extensive library that we developed, over a few thousand messages, select an appropriate message and send it back to the individual. So it was a 2-group design. One group received daily feedback, feedback on the schedule I described, and the other group did all the self-monitoring, but they did not receive any feedback. And I think that's probably the essence that we can, I think, always have more questions later, but that kind of are the two key points of my work that kind of builds on all the work I've done over the past several years, trying to reduce the intensity of an intervention with face-to-face and reach a broader range of individuals with a remotely delivered weight loss program. Okay, on to other exciting work done by other members of the core. Next slide. And so I think Annette, I think you're more familiar with this study than I am, and I'm going to let you maybe address this study. I think like going forward, we have time to take a little bit of time, but for each slide, but we're going to be trying to be brief in these. I don't think Judy's on the call, right?
I think Judy's on the
Yeah,
call.
Judy's here.
But you have 1 minute, Judy. This is not your most recent work, but could you just give the gist of your work?
Are you on mute? Maybe you can go ahead, Annette.
Okay, so Judy, chime in as soon as you can, but
I'm
So,
sorry, I couldn't find my square.
okay, you have 1 minute, Judy.
Okay, yeah, this represents some of the screens of my app CBT mobile work V, which is geared towards veterans, and it was informed by veterans as well. And we're currently conducting a study at the VA where we enroll veterans that are either they're randomized to get CBT alone or CBT with this app, which we hope will improve their CBT skills and acquisition.
And that's cognitive behavioral therapy.
That's right.
Okay, thanks, Judy. This is a real quick rapid fire, but Denise, can you give an overview of what your studies have been about?
Sure.
For the quick
but
minute?
Yeah, yep. 30 years of developing a reproductive health, Ready Girls is an acronym, reproductive health education, awareness of diabetes in youth for girls. And originally it was targeted to girls with diabetes, type 1 and then type 2, and that became an epidemic. And it was a study to provide information and skills to help them plan a healthy pregnancy in the future. So it was preconception counseling for these girls because they were at such high risk for complications. We did this originally, and then we morphed the Ready Girls program for American Indians and Alaska Natives, made it culturally sensitive, but also targeted girls who are at risk for diabetes to help them prevent gestational diabetes. And we also brought the mothers into a mother-daughter dyadic. This was all online. Well, we started off 30 years ago with CD-ROMs, then became DVDs, and then we went to an online program where it became video clips, video snippets, ebooks, and everything was online. So now it's been disseminated to the Indian Health Service clinics, which is like 200 over the United States. Our project is done. We've had 2 R01s, 3 American Diabetes Association awards to develop this and come up with the evaluation on these to make them validated. And our program for Ready Girls is actually the American Diabetes Association's preconception counseling program for teens, and it's online. And all of these programs are now free and in distribution. So
Great, that's a longevity that you can be proud of. I'm going to introduce one of the studies that is currently going on that I'm the co-PI for. This is a multi-center trial across 7 transplant programs in the US and Canada. The goal is to develop a intervention to promote medication adherence in teens and young adult kidney transplant recipients with the support of their parents and healthcare professionals. The intervention the first stage was user-centered design, assessing the needs. The second, it was usability testing of a possible e-pillbox and phone app with coach role and a website. So you can see here, it's in a companion website that the coach, the patient, the parent and the adolescent can all work with multiple platforms to try to improve their adherence. We're now in a trial of randomized trial of centers using the intervention versus usual care. The other study that's ongoing is LT-GO, which is a multi-component tele-rehab exercise intervention for patients after lung transplantation. Much like Laura's work, this is to get a better scaling of remote delivery of exercise interventions that traditionally have only been in person. So we're now doing a trial to evaluate LT-GO versus enhanced usual care to impact physical function and physical activity and blood pressure control after transplant. And we're in our final year right now. For some reason, this keeps jumping ahead, but is Chris on the call?
I am, yes.
Oh, good. So Chris, I have some of your information here, but please take a
Perfect.
minute to share your plans.
Great. So I am doing research that's looking at improving the sleep health of adults with excess weight and suboptimal sleep health. So currently I have a pilot feasibility study that's funded by the CRE, and it's in the data analysis phase. And as Dr. Burke mentioned, I have a grant that is pending NIH review. For this, I've used Fitbits to assess sleep. And it is a remote intervention, so it is delivered over Zoom. I have additional interest in sleep health, cardiometabolic health, shift work, and tele-rehab. I am a co-I on the LT-GO study. And collaborators work with several faculty from the School of Medicine, Education, and the School of Health and Rehab Sciences. Other technologies that I've used in the past, I have used Actigraph, that's part of the LT-GO study, and various monitors for sleep assessments. So I've used ActiWatch, which actually is no longer going to be made at the end of the year. So that's an interesting little technology thing. Yeah, that's
Okay,
me.
thanks, Chris. We're going in alphabetical order here. So Youngji.
Okay, hi everyone. This is the NLM funded R1 study called Health E-Librarians with Personalized Recommended Systems Helper. And well, it is the system that online the automated recommended systems for ovarian cancer patients and caregivers to meet their information needs, cancer trajectory, and also their knowledge level. We are like this kind of the Google for ovarian cancer patient and caregivers, rather than they are just going to the Google looking for the information that they need. With the helper system, with the validated and up-to-date all the online resources, we are making the automated recommendations for caregivers and patients in order to meet their information needs. So we are now in the year 3 and year 4, and hopefully we can start recruiting patients for the real feasibility studies. Thanks.
Thank you. And I just wanted to point out that Youngji's work is sort of working with both cores, but she's also, as I mentioned, a facilitator for the Health Informatic Data Science Core. Dan Lee, Dan, are you on the call? Does anyone see Dan?
No, she's not.
Okay, so Youngji, do you want to explain briefly Dan's work?
Yes, this work is well, developing the algorithms to automate it, automatically assess the pressure injuries. But I think from my understanding, this is the very preliminary part that because she's been collecting the images, the pressure, or the injury images from the hospitals. And then now he developed it and validated whether her algorithms can automatically, predict and assess the pressure injuries.
Great.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth,
The STAR study was a randomized controlled clinical trial of a cognitive behavioral intervention to promote physical activity in older adults with comorbidities, specifically osteoarthritis of the knee and hypertension, both of which could benefit from adoption of and maintenance of a physical activity regimen. And we had great outcomes from it. The primary results were published, and we also conducted and reported, published a study of qualitative data that was used as a preliminary study for a grant that was submitted to NIA, and we need to revise and resubmit that. But the the devices that we used in the STAR study included Actigraph, activity monitors, and a e-diary on an Android smartphone. We also had digital dynamometers and digital blood pressure assessments. The intervention itself was self-efficacy based. For the new trial, we wanted to include a support companion. So it would be a sort of a dyadic intervention, which would be a spin on and build upon what we learned from the STAR study. The collaborators primarily came from the School of Health and Rehab Sciences from various departments in that school. We're still publishing off the study. We had a lot of data. A PhD student that graduated in the summer has 3 manuscripts developed that we plan to submit, and just recently had an undergrad student in public health reach out to me. She has an interest, she's in honors college, has an interest in comorbidities and symptoms and their impact on health-related quality of life. So I think we'll be able to get her data to conduct that study.
thanks, Elizabeth. So we're going to get into a discussion, but that I believe Laura is going to lead about the interactive health technology. And then we'll come back. I just wanted to also remind you that Ravi Patel will be speaking on November 10th, but our next session is the overview of the Health Informatics Core. We still are looking for volunteers from other schools and departments to present an overview of their work. So Laura and Jamie, do you want to continue the discussion in any way, and then I'll come back on?
Sure. I guess, first of all, does anyone have any questions or any points that they would like to add before we go a little bit further?
Actually, this is Denise. I just wanted to say, Laura, I forgot to mention that Sue Sirica was also one of our co-investigators on our Ready Girls study for the past 30 years. So my shout out to Susan, because she's really been one of our core members and really helpful with everything that we've done from Ready Girls to stopping GDM. So thanks, Susan.
Thanks, Denise. I echo that. Susan has been my partner since my dissertation days. So we've collected a lot of data and analyzed a lot of data and published a lot of papers, which you have too. So Susan's obviously a key person, not only in school, the core of the School of Nursing and everything else. So I think one of the things I would like to address and maybe really emphasize is the interdisciplinary collaboration. In my last trial, I went from using Carnegie Mellon individuals for programming and thought I wanted to come back to Pitt and used individuals in the School of Health and Rehabilitation Science. To me, and I would love to hear from them, to me, I think that is one of the weak areas in our university, is maybe having strong collaborators who are really interested in the use of technology, but not just technology, but it's again, the participant interaction with the technology. I didn't take time to go into the results that we found from our latest clinical trial where it was completely driven remotely with use of technology. But again, it's the user and what they need. And we're clinicians, basically at heart before we became researchers and scientists. And so we know where individuals are when they're using something. But I find that there's a gap here in finding individuals to collaborate with who are not just interested in the development of technology, but how is that technology used and accepted by the users? And I think that's something we may want to work on in this core, is really expanding the people involved in Pittsburgh, whether it's CMU, Pitt, School of Computing Science, and anyone else that could help, I think, inform us and help us improve the technology we're using. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts or comments on their experience at Pitt.
And I think you're making a good point that most of us come to the point in our research studies where health behaviors are engagement in the intervention or sustaining health behaviors comes to, it slows down, I guess is better than stopping altogether. But so perhaps focusing on engagement and more of the co-creation of these interventions with actual users, moving more towards the trend of human-centered design and design justice beyond just usability, like user-centered design. There's a lot of overlap in those approaches, but there's hope that those will increase engagement and sustainability. And before too long, I see, Martina, you're still on. I know you're on the phone, but I'm hoping that you will look at those dates that we have upcoming and select one of them to share the work of your group at the you sort of straddle Graduate School of Public Health and School of Medicine, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm primarily in the School of Medicine. I'm actually pretty new to Pitt. So in terms of representing the group necessarily, that's a bit daunting. I'm not sure. I think Bruce Roman would probably be the best person to, if he's able to kind of like speak to what the School of Medicine is doing. I'm just now getting integrated in what everyone is doing in the area of e-health. And I'm so glad to hear about what everyone is doing in the School of Nursing and thinking of definitely collaborating with some of you as I get more integrated at Pitt.
Well, that's a good point. There's many representatives in each of these departments and schools, but we really thank you for joining this particular session. It looks like you are the only one other than Jeanette from the University of Basel who are representing other disciplines. So we're really pleased that you joined us. And we have one of the postdocs, Julia O'Brien, on the T32, and we have Yikang Guo, our visiting scholar from China as well. So I wonder if the way we publicize this was not as far reaching to the other disciplines as we had hoped. Also, I have to say, if there are other projects, we know there are likely other projects in the interactive health technology space that we haven't involved in this particular session, who are on our mailing list, like Faith Leister and Hee-Young Lee and others. So we just basically took a selection of people who had provided us with some information. Let me see if there's something in the chat. Okay, we got those handled. But Salah and Youngji, so our next session will be your core with Teresa and Faye, if he's available, to do an overview of the core that you're facilitating. Do you want to say anything in advance of that?
So I believe we're gonna just simply follow, a similar pattern to what you did today. So we just talk about the main aims of why we have this core and the main research directions of the faculty who are involved and potential opportunities. And I believe we might touch base a little bit on training opportunities, because I believe one of the main reasons why we started this core is we want people to be trained in data science, and other, methodologies. So we'll try to touch base a little bit on how we can actually achieve that and what training opportunities people might have.
Sounds good. You have the full session next time. And then I'm going to continue to encourage representatives from the other disciplines to attend, participate, and hopefully by January, we'll be able to start planning some convergent research kind of opportunities, be better prepared to respond to RFAs while the work continues with all individual work and different individual grants. And as Laura said, these projects that we presented today have collaborators from across disciplines already, include students and trainees, and sort of live on, because as secondary analyses continues and other work, they're very fruitful beyond just the active intervention or active development period. So if are there any other thoughts, anything you want to add, or we'll just...
So,
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead, Laura.
I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up, Denise, sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead, Laura.
So, well, you had your hand up, so go ahead. I didn't have mine.
Okay. I'm gonna say, when you talked about Carnegie Mellon, Laura, I'm wondering if we can extend even further than just the technology piece of Carnegie Mellon, because I was collaborating with the group in the cognitive behavioral area, and Julie Downs was my co-collaborator. Now, she didn't, it wasn't technology, but that helped us so much because it was behavior. So there's a whole group there that does behavior. So I'm wondering if we can extend to them and bring them in, because we can work on that level too, because she helped a lot with program evaluation and cognitive frameworks and whatnot. So she was one of my co-PIs actually for one of our studies. So I just wanted to mention that.
So I'm familiar with her work. I think I might have reviewed a grant or something at some point. But no, I totally agree. I don't think there are any boundaries that we can't go beyond in terms of discipline or schools or open it up, because they do have a very strong psychology department over there. And I just almost wonder, because again, going back to the point I'm making about the collaboration and improving the engagement with the technology we use. What my last RCT, that was all about engagement, and that was the secondary aim. That we need to strengthen that. And I almost wonder whether we might have a stronger alliance with the School of Computing and Information Science. I know there's some, on a grant I'm in EPI that's using EMA, there's a person over there who's very involved, Hassan Karimi, if I'm saying his name correctly, who was very engaged in the EMA and in the technology. So I think we might want to consider maybe actually reaching out to these people and asking them to maybe come and present some of their work and how they see the development of technology. And to me, that's important. When I did the EMA study, actually the student who did the programming would come to the intervention sessions and sit in the back of the room and listen to the intervention and be available to talk to participants, which was to me the ideal. They're looking at how is the participants responding to the programming I've done. And I think that's something that we really want to improve, because I can tell you from my RCT, the beautiful technology in itself does not assure engagement. We need to have some other factors involved in for long-term engagement with using all the sophisticated technology. So that would be one thing I would say is let's try to develop a stronger alliance or collaboration, that maybe they actually come involved and attend some of our meetings or be higher on the list for presenters.
I think that would be a great initiative for the Interactive Health Technology Core to undertake, because it crosses all of our projects. The other thing I want to mention is I didn't hear from very many people in the school or otherwise, with additional people to add to the list of on the eHealth list. So the people that you've mentioned today, or anyone else you can think of, send me their contact information and I will specifically reach out to them. We have 75 people on the list right now, and it's attached to your previous email. But if there are other people that we should add, I'm more than happy. And I've also sent out a specific invite to people from SCI and the various schools and departments, DBMI, other groups, to ask them if they want to give the overview for us for their groups. But let's hope that expands a little bit too. So send me any ideas you have and I'll reach out to individuals.
So Jamie, as the new core facilitator, I want to make sure you have an opportunity to add anything before we close here.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add. Thanks. Great discussion.
So you're broadening our perspective. So Jacob and I had a lot of overlap in our work. So I think it's great to bring you on board because you have a totally different population and focus in your research, which I think is going to strengthen the core and really advance it. And I think maybe we need to make sure that some of the individuals who are not on the call today, like you know, some of the faculty who are doing work in other areas, but they haven't participated, to maybe really reach out to them. And maybe you and I can do that. To say,
Yeah.
you know, we really need you to be involved, even if you are not funded or you're just developing some studies. You know, you can learn from the group. So get involved.
Well, I think Teresa Thomas would be a great person too. I think we reached out to her, but she didn't
Absolutely.
send us anything. So yeah, I might reach out to her
And we
individually.
need to get He Young involved too, because she has
Yeah.
a good clinical expertise as well as research.
And don't forget, if you have pre and postdoc trainees or your undergrad research students want to be involved, whether they're in nursing or other disciplines, they're all invited to participate. Okay, well,
Thank
this
you,
has been
everybody, for
helpful,
attending.
fruitful.
Yeah.
Any last words, Laura? Or are we set to adjourn?
It's fun to be back with the eHub. It's been a while since I've been at a meeting with, looking at all the faces here that I see today. So this is fun, and I am hopeful that we can regain the momentum we've had in the past. And I mean, we have so many strong junior faculty who have expertise in this area. And I think, you know, I think to Denise and Elizabeth, no offense, but we've been around the block several times, and we really need some new ideas to come to the table. So, so Jamie, get your peers out here, and Julia, thank you as a
And Judy as well, yeah.
And really, so also Young Ji, you know, get your peers involved here. The junior faculty have a lot of expertise and energy and fresh new ideas that we really need.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll post these recordings. We'll figure out a mechanism for those who haven't been able to join us, but thank you for your ongoing support, and I look forward to our future work. I'm excited about the potential.
And thank you, Annette, for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Annette.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for-
Thank you, Annette.
thanks
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, folks.
Thanks, Jamie and Laura.
You're welcome.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you guys for everything you did to get the slides together.
It was our pleasure.
Thanks.
It came up pretty quick, didn't it?
It did.
And Kelly, I'll talk to you later today.
Do you, Jamie and Annette, do you want to stay on for a minute or anything?
Yeah, I was just asking if Kelly could log off. That's our visiting scholar.
Oh,
I'm not sure if she can hear me, but if you don't mind that she's still on, it's up to you.
That's
Let's
fine.
so go ahead.
Oh, so I mean, so I think it went very well.
Did I stop the recording?
Oh, yes.